Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Cindy Howard, your host of the Positively Altered podcast. I am a chiropractic internist and nutritionist and an author of the book called Positively Altered: Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag, which really is about how when life hands you crap, how do you overcome it? And we talk about that all the time. This podcast is health, wellness, mental, spiritual, physical, and really anything we feel like saying. So everything is fair game. Today, however, I am super excited because we're going to talk about raising children, which for some of us is a dream and for some of us, maybe not so much. But my next guest who's going to be with us is going to talk about dream wellness, the 5 keys to raising kids for a lifetime of physical and mental health. And he's also the creator of the Dream Score. And we're going to find out what that is. And I'm going to see what my score is because I don't know if it's going to be good. So grab something to drink, a warm, comfy seat in your house, or kick back that seat in the car. Okay, be careful when you're driving. Don't kick it back too far, but don't go away. You're going to love my next guest. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? I'm glad you stuck with us. This is Dr. Cindy Howard with the Positively Altered podcast, and we're going to talk about dreams, children, disease, and how to even find the right practitioner. That's a lot. I'm going to introduce you to my next guest, Dr. Brian Stenzler. Welcome, Brian. I'm so excited to have you today.
Thank you, Dr. Cindy. It's so great to be here.
So that's a mouthful, all those things in one sentence. Ready for that?
I'm ready.
All right. So first, tell me about the impetus to the book, right? Dream wellness and the attraction to why children? Why are we talking about kids?
You know, parents are so messed up in their lives that they're just bringing in messed up kids. And it's very sad because, I see all these kids. I practiced, family wellness chiropractic for over 25 years and saw kids suffering with all of these issues that are so preventable. And the parents have these issues also. So I figured if I'm going to write a book to parents about how to make them healthier, they're not going to read it. But they actually do care about their kids. It's an amazing thing, the things that they'll put aside. But when it comes to their children, they'll actually listen. So the truth of the matter is 90% of the book is about how the parents could get their lives in order so that their kids don't have the same issues that they had growing up. Because ultimately, this, kids, their favorite game is follow the leader. And so they're going to follow whatever their parents are doing, and they're going to have very similar results.
So I'm a hot mess. So my kids are in trouble.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
unless they don't see the hot messness.
Well, I don't know. Mine are now almost 18, 20, and 22, and they're actually doing good. So they must have ignored a little bit of the hot mess stuff and found some good stuff in between. But I'm curious, like, what are the things that I've done that are correct? So let's talk about the 5 keys to a wellness lifestyle. Because if there's only 5, I'm pretty sure I can master 5.
You can definitely master 5, and one of my friends, you probably know Eric Plasker. He always says that, change is easy, but thinking about change is the hard thing. And I love that, because people think like, oh, how can I possibly turn my life around? How can I get healthier? How can I lose this weight? How can I have more energy? How can I sleep better? How can I have better sex? How could everything be better in my life? And the fact of the matter is, we just have to do, baby steps. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that's why I broke it into 5 categories, 5 different facets of a wellness lifestyle, being diet, relaxation, exercise, being an adjustment, and mental wellness.
Wait a minute, Brian, you said we can have better sex. Where does that fall into the 5 categories? That's the one I want
All
to talk
5.
about.
All 5.
Oh, okay. I love that. So we're going to hit that. So which is your favorite? Do you have a favorite category? Or is there one we
Well,
typically fail at the most? Or are we like screwing this up all over the place?
one that I fail at most, is that what you said?
Yeah, no, not you personally, but like as a population, is there sort of this category that is that a fair thing that most of us fail at one section, or are we failing at all of these really at different times?
Oh, absolutely. We fail at all of them miserably, but the one that we fail at the most that we don't know about is the A. And that's being an adjustment. That's being in balance mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and having optimal communication between the brain and the body through the nervous system. And that's, where training like you and I have coming in, chiropractically speaking, we may have different ways that we practice chiropractic, the way that we help somebody function at a higher level. But you and I, I'm sure, agree that if the brain doesn't tell your body what to do, your body's not going to work, right? And, doing functional medicine, for example, you can give somebody all the nutritious food in the world, but if their brain doesn't communicate properly with its digestive system, then your food is going to be you're going to be malnourished. You're not going to have the right nutrition out of it. So it's all about, the A part of it is the thing that nobody realizes. Oh, wait, my brain needs to tell the body what to do in order to be healthy. What a novel concept. And who could argue with it? But nobody does it.
Right. So we're not really taking care of our brains, are we? Our kids' brains or our own brains?
No, exactly. And that's what people would say to me, because when I practiced pediatric chiropractic for over 25 years, they're like, why would a kid need a chiropractor? I mean, they don't have back pain. Babies, you take care of babies, they don't complain about back and neck. I'm like, I never once in 25 years advertised back or neck pain. I advertised fully functioning nervous system, because we live our lives through our nervous system. Every organ, muscle, gland, tissue, cell in the body knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, because the brain tells it so. So for me, I didn't even tell people, like when I would go to a restaurant and they would ask what I did for a living, I would never say I was a chiropractor. They'd say, well, what do you do? I'd say I'm a neurospinalologist. And they would be like, a what? They'd either be really impressed or really confused, because I made up the word. It doesn't exist. I'm a neurospinalologist. I deal with the relationship between the nerves and the spine and how it affects your potential to live a healthy wellness lifestyle, period. And then they would ask, how do you do that? And then I would talk about how I assess the nervous system and all that I did. And then at some point I would talk about the 5 keys to the wellness lifestyle. So this way they maximize the integrity of the nervous system, so they don't rely on doctors, whether it's a chiropractor or another type of a doctor, to help them stay in adjustment.
It's so interesting. So I have 3 kids, and all 3 kids were born C-section. First one, emergency, saved my life. Second 2, just didn't get it done the way I wanted to have it done. And therefore, there were some challenges, right, that we know from a nervous system standpoint. I got my hands on my kids the minute they popped out. Well, they were taken out. They didn't actually pop out. They were removed when you have a C-section. But I think it's really important to share with people how important, to your point, that is that it's not about back pain, although I may have had some after the surgery. But for the children, it's not about the back pain, right? It's about that whole process neurologically that they either benefit or don't benefit from, starting even with the birthing process, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that basically almost all dis-ease processes have in common, and I like to hyphenate dis-ease. Our founders of chiropractic, BJ and Dee Palmer, they always hyphenated it. And all disease, unless it's genetic, or congenital, starts with a dysfunction, a dis-ease somewhere. Pretty much all disease processes can be correlated back to the inability to adapt to a stressor, a chemical, physical, or emotional stressor. And the birth process has more chemical, physical, emotional stressors than pretty much anything else that we experience in life. So to think that a kid is immune from needing, a nervous system checkup is beyond me. It's not that, and I always said this as a chiropractor, is every kid doesn't need an adjustment, but they need to be checked to see if they need an adjustment. And so when we look at the birth process, the physical strain, right, the head twisting or being pulled, whether it's, vaginal or whether it's C-section, there's physical trauma there. They've been cooped up in this little thing for a long time. That's physically challenging. Then you've got emotional stressors. They were in a nice, warm, moist environment. Now all of a sudden they got to breathe on their own and consume food on their own. That's pretty tough. And then, chemically, they have to consume foods differently. And most kids these days are getting all kinds of medications, drugs, vaccines, everything put into their bloodstreams immediately. And I'm not going to say whether that's good or bad. I'm just going to say that is a chemical stressor that the body has to adapt to. And so that could wreak havoc on someone also if they don't adapt appropriately. So we all have these stressors that are leading to these disease processes. And so, yeah, when someone would be like, my kid doesn't have any back or neck pain, why would they need to see a chiropractor? And I'd be like, well, how do you know if their brain is communicating optimally with their body through the nervous system? They're like, well, we don't. I'm like, well, why don't we check it? And they're like, well, that makes sense. And that's basically what I've always done for all those years.
Yeah, it's so important. So let's dive into the book a little bit too, and now we're going to educate parents, right, on all these concepts. What are some of your favorite recommendations or suggestions that you feel parents are either unaware of or don't know how to take that first step to change?
So that's actually kind of where the dream score comes in. It's not something that I wanted to create. I created out of necessity because over the 25 years I was in practice, I would hear the same things over and over and over again about why does my kid have this? Why do I have that? Why is this happening? And why is my blood pressure this? Why is my BMI this? My weight this? Why? And they go to these doctors and they get all these tests done. They get the blood test done, which is important. They get heart rate done, which is important. They get the blood pressure done, which is important. All those things are important. But I don't care about those end results when I'm looking at lifestyle. I want to know, why is their blood pressure what it is? Why do their kids hate their parents? Or why are they not paying attention at school? Why does the wife not want to have sex with the husband? Why? And that's not going to come up with a blood test. That's not going to come up with a blood pressure cuff. So I created the dream score in a way of finding out the answers to all these questions. And also it's a way of somebody getting through my 450-page book without it taking 7 months. They could actually get through it in an hour. So you take this 80, 90 question lifestyle assessment tool and right away, and it's all free. So I'm not trying to pitch anyone or anything. It's a free assessment. I want everyone in the world to take this. You just go to dreamwellness.com/dreamscore and they could take it and they could see where are they in their wellness walk and what changes do they need to make now in order to start changing their lives, which is going to change the trajectory of their kids' lives. So, the dream score is not going to tell you how healthy or unhealthy you may be, but it's going to be an indicator of where they are in their current health status and a predictor of their children's future health and life.
So I agree with you. And it's interesting. I make the comment a lot about children that I think we either become our parents or we become the antithesis of our parents. And to your point of the emulation. So it's not only physical choices, it's emotional choices, even spiritual choices, right? That we teach our kids and see what they're going to emulate or reject. Do you find that more children emulate versus reject?
I personally have not done the research on that. I will tell you that, having an 8.5-year-old right now, I know he emulates. And not everything I do is great. I'm a work in progress, as we all are. And so my wife will say, Brian, that is totally you. That's your fault. And I'll look at when he does certain things and I'll be like, Brooke, that's on you. And we laugh about it. When I look at his friends and I see his friends' parents, they're emulating a lot. So I don't have the hard data to say it, but one way or another, it's a compensation. They're either learning from you to do the things that, they're going to do, or they're learning from you what not to do. And, for whatever the reason is, sometimes it's constructive and sometimes it's destructive, emulating or going the opposite. So I think the best thing to do is to expose your children to having the best values and doing things the best way possible and building a foundation as to why. And so a perfect example could be, my son, since before he could read, knew what the organic and non-GMO symbols were. And so when we would walk through Costco or the supermarkets, he would look and point and be like, organic or not organic, and we buy it or we don't buy it. And I would explain to him why. So even still at 8.5, there are times that he asks for things that have destructive ingredients in them. He doesn't typically fight me, and sometimes I let him make the choice because he understands the possible consequences of it. And so the more I educate him and empower him, the more decisions he makes on his own because he knows it's the right choice. And I know he's gone to plenty of birthday parties that I'm not at, that I'm not looking, and he chooses the healthier thing than the unhealthy thing because he values it. And sometimes he chooses the unhealthy thing. And if I find out about it, I don't say anything. I'm like, look, you made that choice. And I think by giving him that little bit of freedom enables him that when he gets older, he's much less likely to reject it because we kept it away from him, as opposed to we explained why. Why are we choosing not to feed him with this? And I think that's going to have a bigger impact. When we give them the foundation and don't just keep them away from everything. We don't really have them on the iPad very much. I mean, we keep them in somewhat of a silo, like the people that he spends time with, kids from his school is very non-technological. And so he gets it. So most of his friends are not on the iPads, but when we're with other people that don't go to his school, whether it's a friend or a family member, yes, he sometimes wants to get on it, but it's not where he's deprived from it. It's more about he understands where it's coming from. So hopefully when he's able to make these decisions on his own, he makes the right decisions. But we never know if he's going to reject or accept. But we want to be the best examples possible.
It's interesting. I'll share with you a little personal. And, I was the same way raising my kids. We didn't drive through McDonald's and, it was water. It wasn't anything, we didn't drink pop or coffee or certainly not Monster drinks, right, in the house. And then, the kids have friends and then they have cars and then they have college and, the exposure opens up. And it's interesting because I know one of the struggles I have as a parent, and food has always been very important to me. Same thing. I educate the kids. You make a choice. There's a consequence to the good or the bad choice. And I want them to have that freedom. But I'll give you a perfect example. We go to wrestling tournaments all the time. My boys are, big wrestlers, and they eat really clean and really healthy. And it's chicken and rice and sweet potatoes and water, right? And they do all the right things. And then we go to the tournaments, and you know what they have access to? Nachos and hot dogs and candy bars, right? So as a parent now, we have to prep. And then they make announcements that you can't bring coolers into a lot of these facilities. So I walk in with my doctor's note, which is my own note because I get to do that, but right, saying that the kids have to eat a certain way. But how do families, any good recommendations for families that really struggle with that aspect, right? Because sometimes we're in places, there's always a choice. We know that, but it appears as though there isn't much of a choice to make good decisions. And I think that's where a lot of parents actually struggle because that's hard, right? It's hard to overcome these obstacles when the whole world believes that, hot dogs and potato chips is a healthy meal.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is cutting out the worst of the worst. Like obviously, artificial colors, right? Those are deal breakers. Hydrogenated oils, corn syrup, and artificial sugars. Those are just deal breakers that we don't allow into our house. Like those are not going to come in. And when parents ask me, if you were to tell me anything about nutrition, what things would you tell me that you avoid those 4 things and you're set off to a good start. Now you go to a birthday party and there's a birthday cake there with the flowers of every color in the world, that those are not real flowers because they didn't come from a rose. So those colors are not real. So when you teach this to them and now they're at a birthday party, they don't have much of a choice. My son knows he's going to try to go to the chocolate where there's not the colored flower. The chocolate is less likely to have the artificial color. Believe it or not, the white is artificially colored. Like people don't realize that. To make white frosting is artificial. Chocolate is less likely, though it could be also. So if you're going to have the cake, you're going to have the cake. But when you understand like those 4 deal breakers, for example, then you can be in certain environments and say yes or no to certain things. And a perfect example of this is if you go camping, you're not going to deprive your kid from having s'mores. But, my son's school does a father-son camp out every year. So what do? We bring our organic graham crackers. We bring our marshmallows from Whole Foods or Trader Joe's that are not made with corn syrup, right? We bring a real chocolate rather than Hershey's or some of the others that don't actually have chocolate in them. And we make s'mores. So are they still loaded with sugar? Yes. Do they still have gluten? Yes. Is it great? No. Is it better than the regular s'mores that you're going to get at a regular campout? Yes. At the same time, if they end up having that regular s'mores, I can't stand them even thinking about having that, they're not going to die from it once or twice. So not likely to, unless they have celiacs or something like that, or, or if they have ADD, ADHD, and they're really sensitive to food coloring and stuff like that, the artificial food colors. So we've got to look at everything. One of the things, and this is going to be a little tangent, but I'm going to make this really quick, is that people say everything in moderation. I don't agree with that. I say once you lick the lollipop of mediocrity, you'll suck forever, right? So I originally heard that from Bob Hoffman, one of my friends and mentors. And the truth of the matter is, when you have everything in moderation, you're not setting yourself up for greatness. You're not even setting yourself up for success. You're setting yourself up for mediocrity at best. What I believe in is excessive goodness and a little bit of bad stuff. And when you have the bad stuff, make it as good as possible. So it's not as horrible as the regular s'mores, but you could have your organic s'mores, which again are not great, but they're a heck of a lot better than the junk that's out there.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and we do the same thing in our house. Like, and forgive me, everybody, because not sure what timing will be when this airs, but we're around Halloween with the recording, and a friend of mine and we got together and we made these ridiculous Rice Krispie treats that looked like bloody hamburger meat. It was actually kind of disgusting, but Halloween, right? And we wanted to do it for the kids. And I spent, I think it was almost $10 on the red food dye that was more beetroot based, right? Than the $2 red dye that is loaded with red dye number 40 that I know is not good on any level for the kids. And even though those Rice Krispies, I probably could have sold them for about $50 a pop when I was done with what I paid for them. But I felt better as a parent, even with my grown kids, knowing that what I was giving them to be silly on Halloween was, to your point, still a healthier alternative in the junk category instead of going completely down the rabbit hole and bottoming out. So, I do. I think there's great, and to this point, I think there's great choices where we don't actually really have to be perfect all the time, right? But be darn close. Be darn close.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So what else in the book? Okay, so wellness and the 5 steps. What else do we need to hit to help people out there? We've got making sure they're well adjusted. We've got food for sure. And you and I could probably talk about that for 20 hours. What else do we need to hit?
Well, the funny thing is in diet is not just food. So diet is everything that goes into the body from the outside world to the inside world. So it's everything you eat, drink, taste, touch, smell, feel, hear, all the movies you watch, all the people you spend time with, all the books and magazines you read is just as much part of your diet as the food you consume. So you probably remember the old computer term GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, right? If you put bad syntax, bad information into a computer, you get garbage out. Well, if we put garbage into our bodies, whether it's through our mouths or our eyes or our ears, we get garbage out. So we want to be very well nourished, not just through our mouths, but also through every part of our body. So we want to be very conscious in terms of what our kids are watching. What are they reading? Who are they spending time with? As much as the parents. Look, if the parents have the news on all the time and they're hearing about all these people dying and fires and everything else, well, that's part of the kids' diet too. It's bad for the parents' diet, but now you're also hurting the kids.
Yeah,
right?
It's so interesting. Because people don't think of it that way, right? They do think of food in and food out versus everything else they're exposed to. And I think kids, sometimes we're not even aware what they hear, right? We're not paying attention to what they're exposed to.
Yeah, and we have to be really careful too, because when they are on the computer or an iPad or something like that, YouTube, you don't know what commercials are popping up. You don't know what they're actually looking at on purpose and stuff. And again, this is why you want to put as many restrictions as you can on the technology, but you can only do so much. And that's why you've got to teach the kids the values that this is not stuff that you want to hear. So like my son knows, you always fast forward anything that he's at with a commercial. So if he's watching something and a commercial pops up, he knows to either mute it or fast forward it. And hopefully that's something he carries in because he doesn't want garbage in and garbage out.
Yeah, it's great. We've never even had TV. I can't remember the last time I wrote a check for cable TV. We just don't watch it.
Love it.
There's too much content that isn't educational and isn't healthy. I want to
Love
switch
it. Love
gears
it.
for just a hot second because you actually talk about a book that changed your life. So you talk about input, right, from reading. And I believe it was Arnold Schwarzenegger that changed your life, right? So
Yeah.
let's give a shout out to Arnold, but I'd love to hear, like, what was that all about when you were younger that set you on a path that might have been very different without that book?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you can't tell from the podcast, and I don't know if people can be watching this, listening to this, or both, but I'm 5'4" at best, and that's on a good day. So you can imagine I wasn't the tallest kid, and I was skinny, I was a twerp, I was uncoordinated, and I wasn't bullied, but I did not have confidence. I lacked a lot of self confidence, and I didn't play sports. I was very bad at sports. I was more into music, the arts, and stuff, and all that. And I remember my great uncle gave me these 5 pound weights, or I had them in the house, and he said, just do curls with them, like sets of 30 or 40 or 50 every day. And one day I actually started to notice, or one of my friends in class said, when I was leaning on a desk, and he's like, is that a tricep muscle? Like, what is that? Is that a bicep muscle? What's going on there? And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I do have a muscle. And he recommended that I check out this book. And I was young. I was probably 14, maybe 15 at the time. And he said, check out this book by Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Education of a Bodybuilder. I'm like, well, I wasn't really much into reading, but I was a fan of Arnold's. He had done Conan at that point, and I think he had done the Terminator, but I'm not sure. I got to look at the timing on it. But I was definitely a fan of Arnold's, and I started reading the book, and I was so inspired, and I started doing some of his exercises when I was about 15, 16, just old enough that it wouldn't affect growth and stuff like that, the growth plates. And I just started putting on some weight for the first time in my life, and muscles, and what? And so not only did I look better and exercise made me healthier, but it also gave me a lot of confidence that I didn't have before. And I put myself in situations that I would never have done prior. And I know that this is a common thing as kids, go through puberty anyway, that's going to happen. But I was always going to be short. That wasn't going to change. And I was always going to get picked on with the short jokes, not bullied, but teased. And I still do. At 51, I still get teased about my height. Now I can laugh about it because I have that confidence. And so by doing the exercises and filling myself out, and being able to do things I wasn't able to do before, that put my life on a certain trajectory. That put me into the trajectory of chiropractic. Actually, before chiropractic care, I was going to be a physical therapist, because, I was a personal trainer in college. So it put me in all these different pathways in a different trajectory that had I not read that book and it had been such an influence in my life, I don't know if I ever would have gone to chiropractic college. And I certainly wouldn't have the life that I have today.
It's so cool how just one moment or one word or one book or one person can make such a huge difference. Well, there's one thing I'm going to promise you, Brian. I'm only 5'4", so I'm never going to make fun of you. And I know it's a little different male versus female, but I'm not taller, so you're never going to get it from me. We can walk even wherever we go, side by side, moving through life together. It's fascinating. You're doing something really cool now that I really want to talk about, because a lot of people in medicine practice and then one day they just get tired and they retire. And you've done something actually really different and very unique, I think, in the space, because now after helping, hundreds, if not thousands, right? Thousands of people and families get well and avoid this dis-ease process. Now you're really connecting people and practitioners together where it's very hard. So, I'll share with you, I've been in practice for 25 years, and commonly a patient will call up and say, hey, Dr. Cindy, who do you have in Iowa or Virginia or out in California that's you? And, there's never a me, but I know what they mean. They want somebody who practices similarly, who can help. And a lot of times I don't have a referral, right? Because the network just doesn't appear to be as big as it truly is. And now you've created a mechanism to actually help people get connected. Let's talk about that, because I think it's really important. Sometimes people want to get better and do the right things. They don't know where to get help.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd love to take credit for having created this, but I didn't create it, but I helped run the company as VP of operations. It was created, 5 to 7 years ago by Kimberly Whittle, whose background was in CPA, running like multi tens of $1 million projects and stuff. And through her own journey with her family, being healed through various natural healthcare providers, starting with the chiropractic, homeopathy, and acupuncture, and all this other stuff, that she wanted to make the journey easier for other people because it was so hard for her. She had to go to conferences around the country, read tons and tons of books. And we know as practitioners that we can't be cloned. We're not everywhere. And there's only so many things that we could do virtual, other things we need to do in person. So she created this space called KnoWEwell, KnoWEwell, KnoWEwell.com. And it's essentially, it's a hub, an ecosystem of individuals, families, employees, employers, and organizations getting connected with naturally oriented, holistically oriented healthcare providers around the globe. So whether the provider is a brick and mortar practitioner like a chiropractor, massage therapist, acupuncture, someone that you got to be there in person for, or a virtual practitioner that they could work on Zoom, or whether it's someone that has an online course, a webinar, a webcast, a masterclass, a summit, immersive event, anything like that, we're able to connect these individuals and families with the provider of their choice to help them stay well and get well and to avoid all the chronic issues and, to do it in an uncensored platform. So we don't worry about Fauci coming in and telling us, well, we don't have this approved by the World Health Organization. We don't see the NIH saying this, and I want to see your double-blind studies. We have accredited, providers of all types, healing and well-being providers, licensed providers. So we make sure that there's some legitimacy behind what they do, but we're not vetting every single thing that they're saying. We're vetting the practitioners. So the consumers that go to our platform know that our practitioners are vetted, right? They go through a process of whether they're screened, verified, checked, there's different levels of all that stuff. But basically, we're able to help them connect with these providers, whether it's through getting into their offices or finding their courses, or in our little social media. We have like a kind of a LinkedIn, Facebook way that, again, is uncensored, that if someone says, well, you could take, vitamin C typically helps with this, they're not going to say, sorry, you're now blocked and you lose your license. You can't talk about vitamin C. I mean, God forbid you talk about vitamin C. So that's what KnoWEwell is. It's kind of like a combination of, WebMD meets Match.com, meets LinkedIn, Facebook, all the Amazon, because there's purchases, everything all in one for natural healthcare, what we call regenerative whole health. So dealing all the way from regenerative agriculture all the way into the different practices of natural healthcare, natural medicine.
So it is kind of like a really cool dating site to find the practitioner that you want to continue dating, right? Because it is a dance, right? And we have to meet and like and mutually respect and make sure we're in a safe, comfortable space to trust somebody to help us with our healthcare. And if we're not happy there, now we can go get somebody else.
That's exactly right. The dating is, that's why she, always said like Match.com, because, she was connected with really good providers. But when a husband had certain health challenges and tried the same providers, it was a mismatch. That did not work well. And he basically wanted to give up on it. So when we create this whole thing, it's like we want to match the providers. We've got over, I think, like 40 or 50 different filters that you could search for somebody. So if a parent is listening to this, and they're dealing with a challenge, their kid is dealing with colic, for example, right? So they could type in who could help with colic, and all this stuff. They may say, I want a medical doctor, I want a chiropractor, I want an acupuncturist, a homeopath. Or they may not care what kind of provider it is. They just want somebody that helps in pediatrics with this. Or they want somebody in their local area, or they want somebody that does a certain technique. If they're looking for something in chiropractic, I want somebody that does upper cervical, I want somebody that does no manipulation, no adjustments that are physical, no popping at all, right? They want somebody that does activator, right? They want somebody that does ART. There are so many different techniques within chiropractic alone, let alone in natural healthcare, that 30 or 40 filters just in chiropractic alone, hundreds of filters for all different healthcare profiles across the board. So there's a lot of different ways that we can make a very positive match and help them find the right provider of choice.
Now, I know one of the challenges that I hear a lot of times out there and regardless of the specialty, is that, it's now taking 4 to 6 months to get in to see somebody somewhere, right? We've got a lot of people that have retired, a lot that are busy. And I know there's, as a parent, especially of children, when I think something is wrong and I want help now, right? Like I don't want that appointment 6 months later. So how well does KnoWEwell, that's a hard thing to say fast, how well does that platform help overcome that obstacle of we can't get somebody to even look at our kids or ourselves for 6 months?
Yeah. So the providers that are in KnoWEwell are the ones that are finding ways to make it so that people can access them. I mean, point blank, they have the mindset of they know that they cannot be the only person serving. So if they outgrow their location, they will get a bigger location or more doctors, right? Those that have a 6 month wait list, they're probably not going to be in KnoWEwell, or it's going to say in there so you'll know ahead of time with their availability that they've got a long wait list. Because to me, that's nonsense. I don't understand. No matter how good somebody is, then start a certification program and train other providers. Because if you truly care beyond the dollar and you want to make an impact on society, find a way to help other people get the care that they need. And restricting it is just not a good way to go. It's one of the things that I was always fortunate with being the chiropractor the way I practice. My visits didn't take very long. So by having 1, 2, 3 other doctors in my office was all that we needed, just enough tables to adjust them because the visits were 5 to 10 minutes. But if someone is doing care that's going to require 30 minutes to an hour, there are capacities, capacity limitations. And so we need to figure that out. And like I said, most of our providers are finding ways to be able to get people to access their care as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's great. I love this platform. And at the end, we're going to let everybody know how they can get a hold of the platform and check this out. So you got to stay tuned for a little bit longer to get that information. All right. So, here's the typical question we say, if you could tell your young self, Brian, something that you know now in raising, right, a child or in wellness, is there a piece of advice you wish you would have gotten or followed?
When you say your young self, you mean when I was a kid or before I was a parent?
Either way, right? Just something you would have passed down if you could go back in time that you wish you had, that piece of advice. Maybe something out of the book that other people can gain from today, or something that you've learned along the, again, we're all projects, right? Nobody's ever done learning. But what's one thing that maybe you wish you would have been able to instill or utilize 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Well, I mean, obviously, it would be good if everybody knew that every decision that they make has a consequence. And so, I did figure out pretty early on that drugs were bad. And so it's unfortunately I learned it from close friends and some family members that learned the hard way. And so I always avoided those. But look, I definitely didn't always eat healthy food. I had, and my parents didn't know. Things were not as obvious then. And so had I ate better when I was really young and didn't have all the candy, maybe I would have made it to 5'5", 5'6". I don't know.
They make
It's hard to
platform
say.
shoes for that now, Brian. Just platform shoes will get you those extra 2 inches. We can make it.
I live in Florida. I'm in Florida. I wear flip-flops all the time or I'm barefoot.
Hold on. I've seen platform flip-flops. They do make them. I don't know how fancy they are for men, but I have seen them. So we can make that happen. All right, everybody. I want you to check out the book Dream Wellness, but I don't want you to go anywhere for too long, because when we come back, we're going to rapid fire some questions at Brian to see what his answers are. And then at the end, we're going to share how you find him, get a hold of the information, and how you become a part of KnoWEwell and the network. So don't go anywhere. Listen to our sponsors. They're super important to me. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop. Hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. All right, welcome back to the Positively Altered podcast. This is one of my favorite parts of the show because I get to rapid fire questions to our guest and they have no idea what I'm going to ask. So, Brian, they're easy. They're really easy. All right. We have had people screw them up even though they're easy. So let's see where we go. All right. And they're never rapid fire because I always have a comment about it, but we're going to see how it goes. All right. First question. You ready for me?
I'm ready.
All right. If you could make snow any color other than the color that it currently is, what would you pick?
Yellow.
Why? Yellow?
Yeah, because people, when they ask for advice, give me one piece of advice. Don't eat yellow snow.
Right.
Because you know somebody's eating it.
I was always taught to avoid yellow snow.
That's what my point. So I just want to mess with people. Just have fun.
Okay, I like that. So no skiing for me though, if it's yellow, because I'm not sure what I'm skiing in. So, okay. Nope, that's totally fair. If there was one food you had to eat for the rest of your life and could not touch anything else, what would you pick?
Half sour pickles.
Half a sour?
Half sour pickles.
How do you make them half?
It's a New York thing.
How do you make them half sour?
Well, I actually did start making them because they're hard to get in Florida. But growing up in New York, you get them a lot in delis. You put them in with garlic, water, salt, some other great spices, coriander, cumin, things like that. A lot of salt. And if you let them go too long, they become sour. So you take them out before they become sour, and they're half sour. They're very vibrant green, and they are so good.
Half sour. Okay, I think there might be a better name for that, but I'm going to go with it because off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. All right. Okay. You could be a professional dancer, singer, or actor. Which one would you pick, and what would you star in?
I actually did want to be an actor when I was younger, but I would say since I play the piano, I would say singer because I'd love to be able to sing along when I play the piano, but I have the worst voice in the world. And then what would I want to star in? I would want to star in a movie eventually that they'll have to make about Billy Joel's life because I play like all of his songs.
Oh, what's your favorite Billy Joel song?
So my favorite Billy Joel song to listen to is My Life. My favorite Billy Joel song to play on the piano is New York State of Mind.
Okay, makes sense. I love Billy Joel. I saw him in concert once. It was him and Elton John. And this was, decades ago, but absolutely unbelievable, the two of them.
Yeah. I've seen Elton John in concert probably 9 or 10 times. Billy Joel, I think 11 or 12 times.
Okay. At Madison Square Garden?
At Madison Square Garden. Yep. I saw Elton John just a few years ago, and I went by myself because I was in New York for a funeral. So I was at Madison Square Garden, saw that it was there as part of his Yellow Brick farewell tour and stuff. And I had seats right above like the stage and stuff. And I got like $50 on StubHub right before. Best concert ever, being so close, giving the band members high fives and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. Don't you love all these artists that do these farewell tours and it's not a farewell to anything? Like it's all just
3 to 5 years. I know.
Oh my gosh. I saw the Rolling Stones in 1981. It was their farewell tour in 1981. I think those guys are still doing it, right?
I saw them in 1999 in Atlanta when they had already done the farewell tour 17 years earlier. So, yeah.
Those guys have been saying goodbye for a very long time, right? A very long time. Yeah. But you know what? Listen, if you can get rid of disease and have that input be good, I guess you can just keep going and going and going, right? Oh my gosh. Totally. Awesome. All right. Last and final question. You ready? What was your favorite thing about doing the podcast today?
Getting to see your smiling face.
Aw, that seems to be the popular answer on this podcast. And we don't pay anybody to say that. We don't.
Wow.
No, it's good.
Well, you always have this vibrance. You have this vibrance, this effervescence about you. And you always make people happy whenever you're around. Spirits just get lifted up.
Oh my gosh, you are so sweet. Well, I love it. You know what, Brian? I got to tell you, I love what you're doing. So please share with everybody, how do we find you? How do we get a hold of you? How do we become part of the network? Where do we buy the book? Give me the whole shebang, please.
Okay. So the book can be found on Amazon, pretty easy. Just type in Dream Wellness Book, you'll find it. Or you could go to my website, drbrianstenzler.com, and that's drbrianstenzler.com. And you'll have links to the book and links to the Dream Score. You could also go to dreamwellness.com, dreamwellness.com/dream score. Get the Dream Score there. Lots of ways of getting it. But if you want a signed copy of the book, and I don't even think I charge extra for it, you get a signed copy of the book, same price that you would have gotten on Amazon. Then you want to get that from my personal page, and I'll send whoever it is a signed copy. So go to drbrianstenzler.com for that. For KnoWEwell, should I mention also how they find KnoWEwell?
Yes, please.
Pretty simple. KnoWEwell.com. A little hard to spell, but it'll be in the show notes. KnoWEwell. KnoWEwell, like KNO for no, WE for we, and then well, KnoWEwell.com. And then to sign up, we're giving you a free membership, whether you're a provider or an individual, a consumer. If you are a consumer, you get a free Explorer membership that's normally $60 a year. So when you go through the checkout process, you type in BeWell, BeWell 60, BeWell 60. And then for providers, it's a $300 off because the provider membership for bronze. So other people can find you. That would be a $300 provider bronze membership. It's MakeWell 300, MakeWell 300. And that would be a way of getting that membership for free. And again, I think they'll be in the show notes as well.
They absolutely will. And I'll tell you, there's just no good reason not to do this, right? Dr. Stenzler has made this super easy to provide you access because we want to make sure that you get the knowledge to keep growing in order to hit those 5 keys to a wellness lifestyle. And at the end, become positively altered. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Dr. Brian Stenzler, it is always a pleasure. I enjoy talking to you as well, learning more about all the things that you're doing to advance wellness instead of disease. So thank you today for being a part of the show. And thank you to everybody who is out there listening. Make sure you keep liking and following us, the Positively Altered podcast. Dr. Cindy, I hope all of you today were positively altered.